Well, hello and welcome to Little State Big Voices with myself, Shahida, and my fabulous co-host, Tracy.
Hey y'all.
So today we have a special guest, and I'm like very interested in talking to her. Tracy is going to give you a quick bio, and we are going to bring her in.
Yes, ma'am. So, thank you guys for joining us once again. Today, we welcome Cindy McField-Asamoah, a passionate mother, advocate, and founder of the Boys Room, which is an affinity group, a program dedicated to empowering adolescent boys in predominantly white institutions. So, Cindy, having witnessed the lack of representation for her sons and other Black and Brown boys in these spaces, was inspired to create the platform where young men can feel safe and discuss issues, topics, and emotions that are critical to their growth and their development. So, as a first generation American, Cindy understands firsthand the challenges of feeling different in the room. So, growing up as one of the few people of color, a Black woman with Latina heritage in a predominantly white or institution, she recognized that the absence of social programs were opportunities that could have helped her to navigate her own experience. So this realization fueled her commitment to ensuring that today's boys, Black and Brown boys specifically, have the support, mentorship, and the community that they need to thrive. So she touts a bachelor's degree in social work and 25 years of experience working with people. And she brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the boys' room. Her background as a social worker at a Connecticut middle school was what helped her facilitate peer groups for children and deepen her understanding for the unique challenges that our young people tend to face. So now she is fully dedicated to building a meaningful and impactful program that fosters resilience, confidence, and success for the next generation of men. So join her and join us in welcoming Cindy as she shapes the future for every boy to have the tools, the support, and the community to make a lasting impact on the world. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Hi.
Hi, Cindy.
Hello, good morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
I
She's
love that.
looking so dapper in that hat. I love
Okay.
that hat, ma'am.
Yes,
Friday. It is Friday. So,
for
yes.
sure. For sure.
So please, I want you to get right into it because this is something that I have been thinking about for a very long time. And then to hear what that you're actually doing it is just fabulous. So can you just tell us really about your work, from top to bottom and how and why it's so needed?
Mm. Well, I don't think we have enough time in this hour,
No.
but I will start by saying that, my husband and I enrolled our boys in independent schools at a very young age. They started in lower school. And, in lower school, there's not much representation. There's more representation for Black and Brown kids, at the middle school level and also at the high school level, but hardly ever really at the lower school level. So that was a little bit of a challenge. But years later, a girlfriend of mine invited me to a panel discussion. And that panel discussion was about white women who teach Black boys. And I was like, why is there even a panel discussion about something like this? Right.
Mhm.
So I was intrigued. I was like, yep, sign me up. I'm ready to go. I've got two of them. So we went there, and there were diversity directors, there were parents of Black boys, there were white teachers, and everybody was kind of sharing like where they're from, how they grew up, and what they learned, and now what they have to unlearn, right, to now teach this population. And so, it was really interesting. I felt like I was overstimulated because there were a lot of things that were happening, unbeknownst to me at the moment, but I was getting really, really triggered. And so, not sure why. I'm hearing something in the background. Is that my
It's a little swishing on your side.
on my side? Oh gosh, I don't know
It's
what.
fine. It usually will clean up, so I'll edit it too.
Okay. So, to give you perspective, so that happened in January of that year, right? And so it is now May, and I was still thinking about this. And I'm like, okay. I need to go sit somewhere and figure out like what this problem is. And so that's exactly what I did. And what I realized, ladies, is that I never really dealt with my issues when I was growing up
Mm.
in fifth grade to 12th grade, right? Just trying to survive, but and always pushing my feelings down to the surface, right? And so now here's an opportunity for me as an adult now to start really going through that and allowing myself that process of revisiting all of those feelings 30 plus years ago, right? That I never allowed myself to have. And so I'm just remembering times like, in middle school, you're all excited to go to like the school dance, right? And then nobody asks you to dance, right? Or
Mhm.
you're in that gym class and the gym teacher decides to choose two kids to be captains of the team and then allows them to pick their team. And then you're cringing because you don't want to be the last one picked, you know? So just reliving all of that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and it started to hurt all over again. And I was like, oh man, my boys are going through this. They're suffering right now. And so having all of those feelings, I came out on the other side and I was like, I need to start a mentoring program for Black and brown boys who go to predominantly schools. And so I'll never forget, it was a Friday night at 10 o'clock. I told my husband what I was thinking about doing, and he was like, that sounds amazing. And now, mind you, my husband is Ghanaian. He's first generation here. He grew up in Connecticut. He went to predominantly white school. So he totally got it. And so I was like, all right. He's like, reach out to a few friends, see if they'd be interested in something like this. And that's exactly what I did. So that same night, I sent out a few texts to a few folks and I was like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. What do you think? And I received the first response back in 5 minutes. And my girlfriend was like, if you do this, you must enroll myself. And I tell you, from the next 4 days, I was getting calls, texts, emails from folks I knew, others I had no idea who they were. But in 4 days, I had a group of boys. Four. I had to stop saying yes to folks. I was like, I just need to start a running wait list and figure out what I'm going to do with these kids. I had no idea. I just knew I had this little idea, and I'm just going to roll with it. I'm sorry, I don't know what this is. This is.
So try going on mute for just 1 second.
After the one, go ahead.
Okay. So now I've got these kids and these are all kids from different schools, different independent schools. But so here's the interesting thing. I never said I only want to work with independent school kids, right? Like I said, as long as they are from PWIs, predominantly white institutions. That could be charter schools, that can be Catholic schools, it could even be public schools, depending on where you are, right? But everyone gets it in their head because when they think of PWI, they immediately go to private school, right? They
Mhm.
immediately go to independent school, but that was not it. So I'll just want to just put the pin in there that it's not just that. But that's all I got though. All the kids, all these kids, these parents were like, yes, whatever you're about to do, yes, get my son inside there. And so now, I've got these 12 boys and I'm like, what do I do with them now? So I immediately just started calling places around in New York, like, I've got this idea. This is what I'm thinking about doing. And folks were like, that sounds amazing. That'll be $10,000 a month to rent my space. And I'm like, I literally thought of this idea a few days ago. I don't have 10 grand
God.
right now so that I could just rent out the space and figure out what I'm doing. So I was like, okay, this is going to be more challenging than I thought. So I'm calling around places. And I finally called the main branch of the library. And I was like, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Can I rent your space? And they totally got behind it. And they were like, you can come as often as you like. You can rent the largest conference room. You can stay as long as you want, and we won't charge you a cent. And I was
Shout
like,
out to public school libraries.
yes, yes. And I'm like, this is godsend. I'm so excited now. So now I finally have a location. I can meet these boys. And I tell people I only did two things. One, I provided a safe space. And two, I just gave them a platform. That's all they needed. And these boys were showing up every single week on time, staying longer, and they were basically running the group. They were not in it. It's like they had so much to say. They wanted to just download all the things that they were going through. Now, mind you,
Can
not
you
every
give us some examples of some of the things that they were saying? Because I think that as parents, we need to be able to pick up on some like small cues that we might be getting from our children, especially when they're going through kind of like that micro racism that they might hit in school.
Well, some kids were like, they were not included to play with other folks because kids were telling them, you don't look like us. You don't look like us. Right. So that's one thing just off the bat that I can think of. Now, mind you, this is going back 6 years, right? Like there's a lot that has happened with this program since then, but I remember that stood out. Right. And they were young then, like they were like, I want to say maybe in like nursery. So now I'm doing this program, right? They're like in second grade. That's still resonating with them.
Oh,
That's still resonating, right? That's
mm-hmm.
still hurting. So anyway, so we did this 4-week pilot program. Now, mind you, I told you like this is now May. I was still thinking about this. I did a quick 4-week pilot program. And so now we're approaching June. You know, most of the independent schools are letting out early. And so we're wrapping. And so one kid says to me, well, Miss Cindy, what are we going to do for the summer? And I'm like, I never thought that far. I was like, I didn't know what was going to happen with this. Right. So I'm like, well, I don't know. Typically, you know, kids go away with their parents for the summer or, you know, they go to sleepaway camp. And they were like, not every kid. And I was like, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, okay. I said, so why don't you do this? I said, when September rolls around, ask mom and dad to reach out to me. And if I'm doing this, then I'll enroll you again. And so when September rolled around for me, I said, I'm going to give myself one good academic year to see if this idea has legs. And the following year, I created my LL. Since then, we expanded to Connecticut. Then we expanded to Massachusetts. Then we expanded to North Carolina. Then I was invited to the National Association of Independent Schools People of Color Conference to speak, doing workshops. Then I was invited to the Admissions of Independent Schools Something Professionals. I was in Salt Lake. Then I was doing workshops there. So then the word just started getting out. Now, mind you, I was doing this all by myself. I was literally driving to Connecticut, running.
The thing I want to point out too is, so I do know you. So I do know I know parts of it, but I actually don't know. I'm learning things as we're talking right now. But I think what's important for people to understand is you were born and raised in Boston, Dorchester, Four Corners. Okay. So you're one of us. You're like you have left Boston and gone on to expand this throughout the nations, but also you do have a degree in social work, but your background, what you were known for was real estate, which is a complete 180 from this. I mean, and you were well established in real estate. That was kind of your niche, and you were doing well in that space. So this is a passion project that you not only took from, you know, a level of, like you said, it was a trigger for you because we both went to Metco. So we had this experience from what, first grade on? Because when did you actually start at Dover?
Started in 5th grade.
Okay.
Great.
So you had some experience at Boston Public Schools. So you actually had that comparison.
I did
as well. So you could see what it was like to be in a predominantly Black school and then move over to predominantly white. So that's a culture shock.
Yeah.
Right here.
And so that's why for me, it's really important. Like my program instructors have the experience of being in a predominantly white school. You can't just try and come in front of my young gents and then just act as if you know what it's like. No, you have to physically experience it because it is very, very different, you know? So all the folks that I hire, they have to have that experience. So yes, and I totally get it because I experienced being in a predominantly Black and then having, like you said, the culture shock and then going on to a predominantly white school. I was one of 2 Black girls in my graduating class, one of 2, right? And so I always say that our experiences were very different. I obviously lived in Boston. My parents are Honduran, right? The young lady who lived out there, she lived out there. She was biracial. She was adopted by a white family. Our experiences are completely different. Completely. Right. So yeah, that was my experience. And then, once I graduated though, ladies, let me tell you, like I went off to college, I went to like a different state. I was leaving all of that Massachusetts-ish back there, right? I was leaving
Uh-huh.
back there. I was on to new horizons. I'm like, I'm moving, I'm leaving, starting new things. And don't get me wrong, like I had an amazing, amazing experience academically. I did, right? But socially, I did not.
So you and Tracy both went to Mecca, but I went to Mecca as well. And I went to Mecca in the 70s.
Okay.
So I was part of the whole busing, and I was in Braintree. And I remember the school I went to was the Mananaquit in Braintree. And I would come home, and this is why I wanted to kind of like emphasize what some of the things that the children were saying that they may not know, but they would feel in their souls. And I would come home and I would tell my mom that Miss Morgan, she never lets the kids on the bus clap the erasers or erase the board. The kids on the bus are all Black, but I would just say the kids on the bus. And one day I had a nosebleed and I went to the playground monitor and I'm covered in blood from my nosebleed. I used to have a lot of nosebleeds when I was little. And I'm saying this, and she looking straight ahead, and she never addressed me. So I just went and sat down with my nosebleeds. Now, this is the 70s and the seas, and those women were wretched to these little Black kids. So that was the first and second grade for me. And then my mom took me out of school and put me in a Catholic school in the city. St. John, St. Francis, St. Joseph's were the predominantly Black Catholic schools with an Afrocentric curriculum. And from there, I went my entire school years with Black teachers up until like, cathedral. So it's the same thing, but it's one of the things I always worried about with my own children. And I made sure that they were in at least 50-50, at least 50-50 children, Black and white, and hopefully some Hispanics in there because sometimes you don't get that either. But so, and that's why it's important to me what when I read your bio and then I read about the boys room, how these children are getting it and getting it so young, because I feel like in those pivotal age, second grade, everything hits the heart, and it's so beautiful that you would acknowledge that, yeah, your children. And then, like Tracy said, this is a passion project. When you have children, you turn into a mama bear. You like, hey, what can I do?
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly it. It was hard for me because, as Tracy mentioned, like I was doing real estate. I mean, I was doing real estate 7 days a week, all day, every day. My clients can always catch me. I was always available. I would be at dinner with my husband and my phone is open. You know what I mean? I mean, that's really bad. But I wouldn't have been successful if I wasn't that hungry, right? And my clients knew that. So it was hard because here I am trying to start this thing, but real estate kept calling me back. And so I was working, when I first started doing real estate, I was working at like the most prestigious real estate company in New York City, right? And so I was working there, started just as an agent, and then years passed, and then my title changed, and years passed, and my title changed, and I just kept moving up and up and up. And then finally I was like, why am I giving all these people my money? I was like, I don't need to give them all my money. So I hung up my own shingle. I was scared though. Like, I'm trying to be an entrepreneur. Like, I don't know. I just have my second son. I was like, I don't know if I should do this. And my husband, he was my number one cheerleader. He was like, you can do this. He's like, you're giving them people all your money and you're making a lot of it. Like, you don't need to be giving them all your money. So for me, I was like, okay, so I want to go and do my own thing, but I'm a very ethical person. I told all of my clients I'm leaving, and I met them at that company, and they do not have to follow me. I don't want them to, because I don't want a problem, right, with that company. They were great to me. I don't ever want to take away. So I shared that with all my clients. But guess what? All my clients came with me.
And that's the foundation, because that's a huge faith to say, I'm going to go from relying on corporate to I'm now a nonprofit, funding myself, funding my program, because we all three have sons on this conversation. Shahida, you have two. Cindy, you have two. I have two. So we understand it's like, and we know that those two sons of ours are completely different from each other, but they still need to be poured into. They still need, still are going to have these experiences. And like you said, if they go from, because my kids are similar too, they've been to predominantly white and predominantly Black. And I think that as parents, we send them in there knowing who they are. And it's constant reassurance to them that no matter what somebody else says about you, just remember what I told you. You know what I mean? So it's one thing to have this idea. It's another thing to actually have the sign behind you and start this organization that is now, is spreading and growing in such a wonderful way. So
Yeah, thank you. But it wasn't easy, let me tell you. It was not. I was the only one, still am, right? I'm the one who is doing all of the work. I would be trying to cultivate these relationships with these schools and just try and establish partnerships. And they were like, that's cute. When you get bigger, you can come, you know? And so now I'm like, oh, really? Yeah. So now you see me out there doing workshops and speaking here and there. Now you want to come knock on my door?
mm-hmm.
You didn't even give me an opportunity before, right? I was small. Here I am, woman, African American, Latina. You didn't even want to give me a shot, right? And so now you see that. Let me give you guys an example. Yesterday, I was on a call. My assistant scheduled this call with this head of school, and I never even knew him. He came on, he was like, I met you twice. Embarrassed, but that's just to say how much I'm out there. I am out there. I want to meet everybody. I remember everybody, right? But I am just out there. And he was like, twice. I met you. And I don't even remember meeting once. I felt really bad, but I'm out here. I really am. Look, this was just grassroots. And so now
Work.
Mm-hmm.
work, right? And so I want to make sure, even though like folks are like, oh, I want you in LA. Oh, I want you in Denver. That's great. I'm happy, but it's not sustainable right now. You know what I mean? Like I am where I need to be right now. And then if I can get out there, great, I will, because I know this program is going to do well other places, right? But right now, like this is my reach here. This is my reach here.
So when you start these conversation, is there or you go to an organization, how do you pitch it? Because what are the foundations that you're trying to give these boys?
Well, I have to do my due diligence first, right? So I have to find out the percentages in the schools, right? And so then I come in with that ammunition, knowing all of the information about their school and telling them, here are the reasons why you need a program like this. Right. And then I also share my story with them because that pulls at the heartstring. I've experienced all of this. I know what they're going through, And so finally, when let's say, we cultivated the relationship, we're now in a partnership. And so what we do with the kids is there are three offerings, right? We have the school based, we have the community based, and we also have the online book club. So let's say we're going to be at the school. And so we have a cohort of boys. And so we work with them. Like we give the schools options. We can do 7 sessions of bridge, 12 session classic, or we can do 17 sessions extended. And so let's say if they decide like they want to just pilot this first because they're unsure how it's going to be received. So then we would start small. We would only do 7 sessions. And so we would meet with those kids one time a week for 7 weeks, basically, right? And so we focus on 5 core values. Our 5 core values, it's confidence, it's leadership, it's awareness, it's belonging, and it's respect. So those are the 5 core values that we focus on. And so what we like to do is, since we're doing 7 sessions, the first session has to be like team building and community building, because we're going to talk about some really deep stuff. And we want to just make sure that we are one cohesive unit, that we are trusting one another so these boys can share, because boys really don't like to share, right? So you have to make sure you build that up first. And then we would begin. So I always my first session is always about awareness. You got to be real clear on who you are and then the surroundings that you are in right now, right? And so we always talk about awareness first. And then what I like to do, I like to create agency. So I'm like, okay, so now what do you guys want to talk about? And so they're like, oh, well, an adult is allowing me to choose something. You know what I mean? And so they love it. And so they would choose every single session what they want to do for the following sessions. Now, within that 1 hour, I designed it. There's 3 sections. So the first is lecture and discussion, right? Whatever that core value is. Then it's followed by an activity that's related to that core value, right? Because that's how kids learn. They have to be real direct, with things in order for them to understand and grasp. And then finally, I have a reflection piece. And this is my favorite piece because this is an opportunity for the kids now to put pen to paper, right? They have to process what they just learned from their program instructor. So they need to take a moment and reflect on what they just learned, right? So now they're writing down, their takeaways or what they just learned. And so they don't realize it, but that's writing comprehension. They're not thinking about that. You know what I mean? They're doing that. And so we always encourage them to share. Let's share. What'd you write about? And so sometimes they don't want to share, others do. And when the kids share, that's public speaking, right? They're not thinking about either, right? So we want to make sure that they are comfortable in this group setting with their homies, that they feel comfortable enough when they're in that classroom that they'll now speak up, right? So that's how our hour is set up. I think you asked me another question, or did I answer it?
You did, because I was basically, what the foundation was for the kids, and you laid that out, perfectly.
And Cindy, what are some of the services, like specifically, what are some of the other services that you offer to participants in your groups?
There's quite a bit. So we definitely do the in-person. Oh, I forgot to also mention the book club, right? So we have the in-person sessions, whether it's like directly partnered with the school or we're doing like a community cohort. That's when like schools aren't able to make up the numbers for a cohort. So we would partner with several different schools so that we will have them, they can come together, and it might be a community center on the weekends or, something like that. So that's our community cohort. And then we also have an online book club. Right. So I needed to balance in person with something online. And so I just created this book club just 3 years ago. And parents are like, okay, you're not going to get my kid to read anything outside of what he has to read for English. And I was like, okay, challenge. How about we are reading for the past 3 years, every Sunday from October to May. Every weekend, we got these boys online from all the 4 states now reading about their own experiences being in a PWI every Sunday.
So cool.
Wow.
What are some of the books?
20 boys every single week.
What are some of the titles that you guys read?
So we have read, I'm forgetting the author's name now, but it's a 3-part series. It's New Kid. I don't know if you guys have heard of New Kid.
I think I've heard of New Kid.
And then there's School Trip. That's another one. And I'm forgetting what the third one is. But it's about this little Black boy from Brooklyn. And he wanted to go to a school for design or art or something like that, right? And his parents enrolled him in a PWI, unbeknownst to him. So he's thinking like he's going to this amazing art school. And he shows up and he sees all these white people. Culture shock. And so, it's also the graphic novel. All the kids are into the graphic novel, right? So it was so cool to have, they read the book in like minutes. You know what I mean? Like it was so cool. It was so nice because every week we're coming back. We only assign a few chapters, and then every Sunday we're coming back and we're talking about it. But what I really love how I designed this is that the reason why I think they come back every week is because on Sundays, we've got music playing. We play for a few moments, waiting for the late folks to come in because, them kids gonna be late, right? We got music playing, and then we start playing a game of maybe like Cahoots or Would You Rather, and that's locking them in, right? And like after the half an hour is over. So that's when we would have breakout rooms, right? So we have the junior cohort, which is the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. And then we have the senior cohort, which is the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And they're reading different books, right? They're at 2 different reading levels. So they would be in their own breakout rooms. And then like 5 or 10 minutes before the hour is over, both of the cohorts come back and they're sharing with each other what they're reading. It is so amazing. The kids love it. I tell you, they come back week after week. So that's amazing. I do love that. Oh,
and it's almost like a group therapy, I think, for them without them knowing.
Yeah.
And so that's great that the parents encourage that.
Yeah.
One question: the environment has changed. And one of the things that I was very upset about a couple of years ago, my grandson came home and he asked me specifically, why is Trump bad? He asked me because a kid in his class was telling him, he was at a predominantly white school in West Warwick, and he was constantly coming to me with like these little microaggressions from these kids who I feel kind of knew exactly what they were doing, trying to intimidate some of the Black kids with their, MAGA stuff.
Yeah.
Are any of the boys that you're working with now or in the past, have they been experiencing that and seeing it grow? Because I know we constantly focus on their parents, but these children are coming and they are really antagonizing our children. How does a parent deal with that? Some advice on that.
Great question. I can tell you maybe about, I want to say maybe about a month ago, a kid came into the school with their MAGA hat on, and they made a comment, and sadly they got punched in the face by one of the kids. And that was clearly not a good thing, right? But I think, they've been kind of hearing little things here and there, and I think all of that pent up aggression, and they were just like, I'm done. Was that the right way to go about it? No, it wasn't. Was that their honest and true reaction? Yeah, it was.
Because one thing that you said, it's all these things building up. So it wasn't just the hat. There was a lot of stuff behind it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And so, right.
Don't blame our babies. No, sir. I'm going ahead.
I mean, but I will say though, I'm really happy that we have a program like this in place, right? Because they us. You know what I mean? Like, this is a program that you cannot do once a month, right? Like, this be consistent, and that's why we have it. It's week after week, and that's why we offer it from October to May, because it would be worse, right? And so we deal with it. So, I mean, sometimes honestly, like, they don't even want to hear what you have to say. They just want to just tell you, like, just be easy with them. Like, these are boys now, right? Like, need to try and solve, right? They just want to just download and say what it is, and then they're good. Maybe others might want to hear a suggestion or two, but some of them, like, I don't even want to hear what you have to say. I just need to get this out. And that's fair. This is your program. This is your group. If that's what you want to do, I'm good with that. Sometimes they come in and they don't want to say anything at all, but they just want to be present. That's fine too. You can be present. It's okay. We'll acknowledge you. You don't have to say anything, but we know that you're here. I do want to say a couple things though. You had mentioned, like, what are some of the things that we offer? So what we like to do when we're wrapping one of the sessions, we like to have a university tour. So I actually flew down to North Carolina 2 weeks ago when they ended. And so again, we're working at predominantly white schools. So I decided to take them to an HBCU. These kids were like they couldn't believe it. Like, just to see them, and like lots of them all around campus. And so I had my instructors, one of my instructors, I don't even know if you guys even heard of this HBCU. It's the smallest one, Johnson C. Smith in North Carolina.
I have it.
It's the smallest HBCU. So I took the guys to that school there. And it was so cool because, we toured the academic buildings, we toured the gym, and what was so cool about it is that their basketball players were playing, they were practicing, and there was a huge game that was happening that evening. So news cameras were like all over the place, and the kids were like, this is so cool. So that was great, and then we also took them to see residential life, right? We took them to go see the student center. And so then we had a moment and we're like, okay, so, what do you guys think? They were all over the place. They loved it so much. And I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to do this in New York. So now I'm planning now for us to tour Fordham University. I've got more boys. So I've got about 40 or 50 boys. I got to figure out how I'm going to do that. But University. And I've also, at the end of, or when the fall approaches, Wesleyan University, I'm taking the kids to Wesleyan University. They need to see their face in these spaces, right?
Yes.
One thing that I'm doing with them. I also do financial literacy workshop. I have a friend who started his own business, Harlem Math Institute. Shout out to Malik King. Graduated high honors at MIT. And so he is a brother who is doing it. And so this is the first opportunity that we're actually including the parents, right? So he used to do that. He would do it in person for the past couple of years. This year, I want him to do it on Zoom so that we can include the parents as well as the kids. So that's what we're planning. We also have, we do the service collective. That's volunteer work that the kids would do. I mean, there's plenty of things that I do. I'm thinking about doing summer camp this summer. So
We asked for it, so hopefully you'll be able to
That
get
would be a great idea.
yeah. So those are some of the things. But for me, I really want to do more speaking engagements, right? I want to get the word out more. You know, I want to expand my presence in Massachusetts a bit more. You know what I mean? Like in New York, I'm in every borough now, right? So I'm really excited about that. But I want to expand in the places that I'm already at. So yeah, so that's what I would like to do. And then I need to build my team more too because I'm
yeah, talk about your recruiting efforts, because I know we kind of brushed on that a little bit when you came up for the Boston Wild Black family reunion.
Yeah.
You were like really intrigued and you got to connect with Sheena Collier, which is great. Shout out to Boston Wild Black. And so part of that is recruiting of not necessarily just young people, but people who are interested in becoming a part of your team to help enhance and again broaden your reach.
Yeah, that is, it's critical for me to get some amazing guys, right? So for me, very intentional. Like, first of all, they have to be Black and brown, just hands down. You have to be. And so for me, I'm looking for undergrad, grad, alum, you know, folks who anywhere between, I would say 21 to about 28, 29. Nothing north of that age because I need them to really relate to these kids. They need to know the lingo and the slang and whatever. I mean, I coin myself as the coolest boy mom, but I'm 50.
So cool.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. I'm still cool. But so, you know, so sometimes I'm getting folks referred to me. Other times I'm not. So I haven't, you know, I'm on different platforms. I'm looking on LinkedIn, you know, looking for really amazing guys. And so, you know, and I get resumes. I do, because folks are like, oh my gosh, this sounds really cool. I want to be a part of it. But there is a screening process, right? Like I tell people, I am small, but I am mighty. Okay. So when they come in, you know, we have to do a discovery call first, right? Like I have to see if I like you, you know, because if I don't like you, I can't put you in front of my young gents. I just won't, you know? And then after the discovery call, then there's an interview. If you can pass the discovery call, there's an interview, formal interview. And then after that, if you pass the interview, now you have to have an interview with the advisory team, you know? And then after that, if you pass that interview, then the final interview would be with me and the advisory team. And if you pass that, then you're getting the job. But it's not just one and done, not here.
The best of
when you're dealing with children, it should not be.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I will say too that we do a very extensive background check. Let's be clear on that. We do. I have been, you know, I have an amazing company that I work with. And they do not play around. I mean, we are working with kids, so I want to make sure that we've done everything. And I share that with the schools. I give them copies of it because I don't want them to be, oh yeah, I'm not sure if I can just take her word. You don't need to take my word. Like we've done this, right? So the school, you know, would have that, and I also share that with the parents as well too, so they know. That's the level of comfort that I need to provide for them.
Yeah, so definitely I would encourage, you know, anyone who's listening, who's interested, whether they want to be part of your team, whether they want to have, you know, a conversation with you about getting their boys some services if they're in the New York area or the Connecticut area. I'm sure, like you said, this is expanding outward. They can reach you on social media. So you're at the Boys Room on social media, correct? So you're on Instagram, you're on LinkedIn, Facebook.
She's on all the things.
All the things. Yes, indeed.
That's incredible. I'm so proud of you. I have to say, like, you know, especially, you know, the fact that, like you said, first generation, we're, you know, it's important because the expectation is for you're going to go in and get that education. Doesn't matter what happens to you in that, on that bus or in that classroom, you better get up and go in the morning because you're the American dream, literally. It's like your thing. So I'm just thinking, like, you and I never had a discussion. I don't think you and I ever had a discussion about discrimination that we face in And as much time as we spent together, like we've never said anything about, oh, this is how we were treated, anything like that. So at our ripe age of 50, we're now discovering that we had experiences that we probably could have helped each other through. So I think part of what you're doing for these boys is giving them also peers that they can bounce things off of, as well as adults who can help them formulate, like, where, how do I work through my feelings? How do I work through what I'm experiencing?
We're helping them navigate this experience, right? Like they have an amazing opportunity to be in these spaces, right? They're not visiting, they're not guests. This is your space, right? And you own that space, but you still need help navigating that experience, you know? Mm-hmm. And so these kids, they have friendships now that go beyond the walls of the boys' room, right? They're gaming on the weekends together. You know what I mean? Like they really have friendships. For me, my goal is for them to continue on even beyond high school, even beyond college, right? I mean, they're cultivating these relationships now. We're building the foundation now that these guys, they're brothers. They love each other. They are, and they go hard for each other.
I love that. And again, I have to go back. I mean, I just absolutely love that, because from your programming, you said, what age group are you starting with?
Graders to 8th graders.
So that's 9 years old. So they're actually, without them knowing, getting therapy, group therapy with people that look like them, that they're probably going to grow up with, and hopefully, like you say, friends, beyond college. So that's a group of children, a group of young men, and a group of adults who know how to communicate their feelings, because they learned that in the boys' room. And that's what I'm so jealous that my grandson could not go through this program, because I've seen he needs it. So I am working on something, trying to develop something for him, because as he's getting ready to go into high school, I have to think about how he feels about his Blackness in these spaces. But also, my main concern for him and children like him here in Rhode Island and Massachusetts is, you need to know your history. And so that's where my focus has been. And I'm like, girl, I love you. It's just touching my soul. And I have been like praying for the last couple of months. What do I need to be doing? And you're just giving a roadmap to that. I might volunteer.
We got to get you into Rhode Island. We're the smallest state. You can come. This is info here.
Where I will come anywhere. I just wanted to, so two things I want to say. First thing I already forgot, but it will come back to me. But the second thing I want to say is that, before this meeting, I had an all team meeting with my staff. And so, there's one, person who they just came back from Berlin, and they just lost their, went from Stanford, went to Berlin for a little bit, and now was back home in New York, and really happy to just be back home. Well, his grandfather fell and passed away, right? This just happened 2 weeks ago. So he's been kind of out. And, when we were just talking, this was his first week back, and we were talking, and he was sharing with me that the cohort that he run, the kids made cards for him. And it was the sweetest thing. Now, mind you, there are some cohorts that we've been running longer. Some are relatively new. Some are upcoming. And he's been running these. He runs a lot of my cohorts, but these two in particular, they're fairly new. He's only been running them for, let's say, 3 weeks. And they call him Mr. T. They're like, Mr. T, we missed you. And all of the wonderful things. And I'm like, that's just 3 weeks of impact. 3 weeks. Right? I mean, can you imagine? He'll be with them until May, but that touched him so much. And it touched me, because I'm like, I started this. You know what I mean? And sometimes I can't even believe it, because sometimes my head is just down and I'm just doing. And I don't really come up for air, But when things like that happen, I'm like, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing the right thing by the.
That's that they could be vulnerable, because that's a vulnerable moment, and it's expressing emotion, and they came up with it on their own. Like, that's so powerful, because when you say safe space, it's not just, oh, this is a place you can come to escape. This is a place you can come to develop your emotional intelligence, it sounds like, which is so crucial, because one day, these men are going to be somebody's father. these boys. They're going to be somebody's mentor. They're going to be somebody's husband, potentially, or partner. And we need them from now to, in your signature on your auto signature says it all. It's the Frederick Douglass quote about building, you could say it, Cindy, because I always butcher it every time I say it, but the Frederick
Building
Douglass.
strong children and building strong children.
It's easier than repairing broken men, to
It's
paraphrase.
easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. That's
Exactly. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. That's the sweet spot right there.
It really is. I mean, it's very important. I'm just blown away. And you've been doing it now for, you said,
in June it will be 6 years.
6 years.
So pre-pandemic, you started this not knowing what you were about to experience 1 year in.
I know.
And by yourself.
And by
But and this goes to as well, because it's International Women's Month, and I know Tracy's not celebrating it, but I'm not either.
Celebrating everybody. I'm celebrating.
She's not celebrating every woman, and fair enough. But it goes back to those African American women after slavery and during slavery, the risks that they took to teach us how to read or write, or to have those schools, and they were, and weren't paid anything. And then to, build up these, historically Black colleges for our young. Yes, you're doing the same work. And we all, at this point in time, when we see what is coming down in society, we all need to be doing this work for the next generation. And I'm just like, I'm so moved. I'm not going to say it anymore.
Work that's going to resonate, because that's what I'm thinking of. You're saying you have 40 boys for the older cohort, right? Just think about like your whole group. Like if one little seed impacts each of those kids, that changes their life trajectory. So
and the people they come involved in touch with.
So it's going to resonate. That's so powerful. So important.
Thank you. Yeah. I always say this program has to outlive me, right? Like this is the thing that we've needed for a really long time. And I'm shocked that no one even thought to do something like this, right? But you know what? It was my timing. It was the man who had this for me, unbeknownst to me, going through all the things that I went through in Boston, in the East, all of that stuff, to now be on this side doing this work because of what I experienced. You know what I mean? Like, listen, he already created it. I had no idea that this is what I was going to be doing. And I love it. I love it. My boys see me and they're just like, oh my goodness. Like they remember when I was in the pilot program. And then I'm like, oh, this is in high school,
I can believe it.
Man.
And I think people have done it informally, but it's good to have it, a place where somebody can actually look and find, because I have my friend who I've known since the 3rd grade, and we grew up in the same, predominantly in this Catholic school that was for African Americans.
Yeah.
She ended up going to a MECO program, Lincoln Sudbury, and her mom had the other moms get together with the kids, and they had their meetups to discuss like what they needed to do as far as like, making sure that their children got what they needed. They might not have used the same wording that we use today, but a lot of those mothers were doing exactly the same thing. That's what makes it so beautiful, that you saw that and you said, you know what, let me take it one step further.
Yeah, no, it's deep. And like you said, Shahida, this could start, as early as 1st grade. And when you're getting that feeling, or younger, when you're getting that feeling from a grown-up that you don't have value, you have to get much louder voices from somewhere else saying, yes, you are valuable. Yes, you are important. You are a beautiful Black or brown child. Yeah. So the boys' room is doing that for these kids. And
because people are getting bolder, we're trying to tear you down.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and that's why we need to be bolder and louder to build our boys up. And then you know what? We got to do this with the girls too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I know. I listen, if I had a quarter for every time I'm asked that question, like
I know,
and I'm like, listen, I get it. I'm female. I know.
But I think part of it too is that because we're female, we understand like it's challenging to be a Black or brown female, but it is also challenging to be a Black or brown male who does not feel they have a voice. So that's, that's part of it, is that, girls need services, boys need services. I don't expect you to just start saying, oh, I'm going to include girls all of a sudden.
But that somebody else could pick
That's
that
somebody
up.
else's ministry, and
You
let them
know?
pick it up. And I think let you be an example to someone who has the seed, has the idea, but is thinking to themselves, I don't know if I can do something like that. A year and a half ago, I didn't think I could do a podcast. You know what I'm saying? And it took Shahida saying, yeah, we can do it. And I was like, you know what? We can do a podcast. And now we're doing it. It took you saying, like, listen, I have some unresolved stuff. What can I do? And how can I go about it? And and just like I said, leap of faith, because and it was your time, it was God's will, obviously, because it's happening for you. So I think that it's just, let it be a lesson to people that if you have something important on your heart, to go with it and try to guns
and keep going, even if they tell you cannot do this.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they say, oh, it's going to be $10,000 a month for rent.
Oh,
exactly.
Like, how dare you?
You got to put your creative hat on.
Oh, I like your creative hat. I might have to get.
How dare you?
Well, listen, ladies, it has been so fun. Thank you.
Yes.
This was great. I'm happy to come back on anytime that you need to fill. But this was great because, I can sit here and talk for hours about the program, the things that we've done, the things that we still need to do, the trajectory that we're on. All of it. It's a lot, but it's all exciting stuff. It's all
exciting. It is very exciting. And we are very grateful that you took time out of your busy day, because I know you're busy day, to come and speak with us. And so, Tracy, just take us out where we can find her on social media. On social media.
Yes. So you can find the Boys Room on their website. Is it boysroom.org, Cindy?
Yeah.
boysroom.org. Also on Facebook, also on Instagram and LinkedIn. You can also find information, because we'll be posting some of it on our Facebook as well as our Instagram. Y'all know we are not on TikTok, but we're not checking for them right now. No. But you can find us on those socials and follow the Boys Room. Share the Boys Room if you're an auntie, a mother, a dad, a godparent, a mentor, someone involved in the life of a young Black or brown boy. It doesn't matter if you're not in New York right now. Cindy is spreading her wings. So you never know. Just that push from another state might get her over to you for at least a conversation. So follow the Boys Room online.
Thank you.
Thank you again, and have a great day.
Thank you. Enjoy. Take care. Bye now.